Let's go and look at Australia. Let's look at Super Rugby over across the Tasman. And to me, I think there's been some quality rugby. And who better to talk that about? Let's talk to Tim Horan. Timmy, welcome. Great to have you on the breakdown once again. The Reds or the Brumbies, they keep going at it. They're clearly the two best teams. But more importantly, what about the quality of footy that Dave Rennie's looking at? Are you liking what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think I'm liking it. I think Dave Rennie and the supporters are liking it. I think the way that especially the top two teams, the Brumbies and the Reds, of course, as you mentioned, Jeff, the way they're playing the game, the way they're getting more offloads away. And the Rebels aren't too far behind. Obviously, it's a rebuild for the Waratahs, as you know, and the Western Force, probably as you guys have would have discussed, it's a bit more of a barbarians type outfit with players coming from around the world. But it's going to take some time. But I think probably, and I haven't spoken to Channel 9 or our broadcasters who I'm working for now, but I reckon we may have stumbled across a pretty good concept. You do Super Rugby AU for that 12, 13 weeks, and then you go into a trans-Tasman competition. We may have found a pretty good model.
Tim, there seems to be more focus on attack over there. Is that something that's just happened, or less focus on defence? But it's certainly way more free-flowing.
Yeah, JK, I think it's probably in that Dave Rennie sort of last year when all the players came through. When you look at Scotty Wiseman, who's the assistant coach of the Wallabies, very much an attack focus for him. And he's obviously come out of being assistant coach for Eddie Jones in England for a couple of years. So I think that model that they want to try and keep the ball alive, I think probably the last 4 or 5 years, the way that rugby was played in Australia, that we went to ground too often. And now I think we're modelling it off, trying to stay on our feet, try and look for offloads and try and keep the ball in play a lot longer.
Tim, I want to go back to the Waratahs, because I know you say it's a rebuilding time, but what's actually going wrong? And don't blame the Kiwi coach, because it must be concerning that the catchment there. When you're competing against the rugby league and AFL as well, particularly in Sydney.
Yeah, Mills, I think they missed the trick probably 2 or 3 years ago. When you had all those players like you had Bernard Foley, Kurtley Beale, even Rob Simmons, and all the players that they had a really good, yes, they've got a great catchment. They need to do better with their recruitment. I think around that age, 15, 16, the recruitment of players needs to be better. But I think they didn't bring the blood these younger players through when you've got experienced players. As you and I know, Mills, you have to have some experienced players around when you develop the younger players. At the moment, it's just a team full of 21, 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds, and they've got no experience around them. So I don't think they blended it well, but I think in time they're going to be a really good outfit. But the hard thing, guys, as you know, is in sport, and especially in rugby, that fans aren't that patient.
You're 100% right there. But they've been patient with the Reds, and they were patient with Brad Thorn, and they knew what he was trying to achieve there. He obviously set the values and standards the way that he wanted to do that. He made some pretty honest calls, but he's reaping those rewards. Where are the significant changes you've seen from them, and what are the players doing differently that maybe give them an opportunity at the next level?
I think the players aren't shy anymore. I think in those first couple of years they were a bit shy. They were nervous on their position on the field or in the team. And I think what Brad Thorn did, he obviously had tough calls with Quade Cooper, with James Slipper, with a couple of the players, and he set this really strong foundation in their culture. And he wanted that foundation for all the younger players to build from. And his first year as head coach, he won 6 matches. His second year as head coach, 6 matches. And I reckon that, I'm not sure, guys, what you think, but I reckon COVID came around at a pretty good time for Brad Thorn. I think they may have lost their first 4 games last year, only won 1 in those first 5 or 6 rounds. And it came at a good time because then they went to Super Rugby AU, and Brad Thorn all of a sudden was winning match after match. And it probably gave not just the team, but gave him as a coaching personality to gain more confidence. And look what's happened this year. They've unbeaten come against the Brumbies this weekend.
Tim, it's been a hard few years for Australian rugby, deals coming and going and, financial difficulties. We've been talking a lot over here about, the Silver Lakes deals and private equity. Is there anything you've heard over there, the Australian Rugby Union looking to find someone to help them grow the game?
Yeah, well, Hamish McClellan, who's the chairman of Rugby Australia, who's done a wonderful job, and Rob Clark, who was the CEO, who's just stood down. Both those two people have done a great job in just exploring some opportunities. And I don't think, a coffee here and there with a private equity group doesn't go astray, just to see what benefit financially that happened. But also you've got to be careful. You don't want to lose, and I'm sure you guys would agree, you don't want to lose the brand or the IP of that Wallabie brand to go too far. But there's got to be a way that if you bring private equity in, and I know that the Silver Lake model, if you do that, you've then got to be able to use some of those funds for community, for club rugby to grow the game and have more boys and girls play the game, not just in 15s, but the growth for us in Australia is 7-a-side rugby, because you go to country schools and country clubs, it's really hard to get 15 to 20 girls to play the game, but you can get 10 girls and they'll play sevens rugby. So that's where we're going to try and put more focus on the sevens rugby around Australia.
Tim, you touched on, a competition, trans-Tasman competition. We're about to announce, something that hopefully that will open up a bubble. How important would that be in terms of a competition between yourselves and I suppose, Super Rugby Aotearoa?
There's probably a couple of things. One, hugely financially important for Rugby Australia and for the players. And I think also, more importantly, for us to see where we're at now. I think we've had a couple of years now where we've probably been behind a little bit. I think our skill level has grown, I think, through Dave Rennie. I think even through Michael Checker. I give Michael Checker some credit over the last 2 or 3 years of what he's developed these younger players and brought them through. So really important. Looking forward to seeing what your Prime Minister announces on Tuesday. It's important, not just for sport, but I think important for families and people who want to get home to New Zealand or come to Australia. And obviously there's a lot of Kiwis that live in Australia. So I think that's important. It's been a tough couple of years or so.
You always love getting on tour. You can't wait to get back across this side of the Tasman. It's always great to catch up with you. You don't age a day, not a bit similar to Sir John Kirwan as well. You're from the same ilk. But, mate, as always, insightful. Great to have you on the show and look forward to catching up with you real soon. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, guys. Good to chat. See you guys.
Insightful, the game growing over in Australia. Plenty to look forward to for them. I really do hope we get some good news next week.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, you talk about excitement and something different after last week's performance and in terms of the Blues game, and I'd love to see something different. If we can get over there and also, match ourselves with what they've got. We've spoken about off camera how good their game is. So let's try and compare it. So hopefully some good news.
I agree with Tim. I think the local game and then into the cross Tasman, or even bring in the Japanese and the Pacifica teams. I think that's a great way to do it. So we've learned something from COVID. I think, the Australian teams are gathering confidence, learning how to play a style of rugby. That's what it used to be like in the old days. You'd have Queensland to have their style. So I think it's fantastic. And if we can bring it all together for another 6-week block, it also keeps the entertainment value. Yeah. We all got a little bit, oh, here we go again with Super, and now, we've got and then it's into something else, and you got one finishes and the next one starts. I like that. And
go keep an eye on this rugby. It is fun and enjoyable to watch. Every weekend there is something a little bit different coming out of Australia. You get your opportunity here on The Breakdown to get tickets to every game of Sky Super Rugby Aotearoa. 6 tickets for the game this weekend, both games this weekend. Make sure you email us at thebreakdown@sky.co.nz.